Come, come into this hour of worship. Come into this sacred space, this sanctuary of memory and hope, of welcome and inclusion. Bring your fears, your doubts, your questions. Bring your joys, your wisdom, your compassion. Bring your songs, songs of lament, songs of rejoicing. Bring your whole self and be together with us for this hour. Here we gather to celebrate the joy of life, to mourn the sorrows and losses of our lives, to join our hands in the work of justice, and to walk together in building a world that may rejoice in beauty and diversity. Let the music of the ages inspire our worship. Come, let us begin.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Berkeley. My name is Andrea Brown. My pronouns are she, her, and they, them, and I am one of the worship associates here at UUCB. This is a welcoming congregation, and we are always working on how to welcome and care for each other better. Whoever you are, we welcome you in the fullness of who you are. Please take a moment to prepare yourself and your space for our time together. If you wish, have your own candle or chalice close at hand and a way to light it so you can personally join in kindling our flame. Now, whether you are lighting a candle or the inner chalice of your heart, let us kindle our flames with these words adapted from the Reverend Kim Beach. We gather within these sacred walls to contemplate the mystery of life. In this hour of worship, we seek to grow and rejoice together. In this place of friendship, we weave the designs of our lives, opening the pathways to love. May the chalice light we kindle now draw us forward in ever deeper bonds of common purpose and action, strong in hope, generous in goodwill, inviting the blessings of this day and all the days to come.
Today is the first Sunday of Advent, the season in the Christian calendar that begins the fourth Sunday before Christmas and ends on Christmas Eve. Advent means waiting, and traditionally, Advent is a season of preparation and anticipation, waiting, as Christians anticipate the birth of Christ. As Unitarian Universalists who draw from the wisdom of many of the world's religious traditions, Advent asks, what are we waiting for and preparing for in our own lives and in the life of our world? In this season of long lights, Advent invites us, of long nights, Advent invites us to explore the themes of hope, peace, joy, and love. On this first Sunday of Advent, we light a candle for hope. What unborn hopes do you carry in your heart? What unborn hopes do you carry in your heart? May the light of this candle and this wreath help us bring more hope into the world. Now let us please join in singing our opening song, This Is My Song. The words will be on screen.
This is my song, O God of all the nations, a song of peace for lands of far and wide. This is my home, the country where my heart is. Here are my hopes, my dreams, my holy shrine. But other roads still other lands are meeting, with hopes and dreams as true and wise as mine. My country's skies are bluer than the ocean, and sunlight beams on clover leaf and vine. But other lands have sunlight too and clover, and skies are everywhere as blue as mine. Oh, hear my song, thou God of all the nations, a song of peace for their land and for mine.
Please join with me in saying our covenant. Love guides this church. The quest for truth and justice is its common purpose. To give thanks, listen deeply, speak with care, honor our differences, and seek and grant forgiveness. These things we covenant with one another.
May we have safe passage, oh, safe passage. May we have safe passage, oh, safe passage on our way. Safe passage on your way, brother. Safe passage on your way, sister. Safe passage on your way, sweet children. Safe passage on our way. May we have safe passage, oh, safe passage. May we have safe passage, oh, safe passage on our way. May we have safe passage, oh, safe passage. May we have safe passage, oh, safe passage on our way. Safe passage on our way, brother. Safe passage on your way, sister. Safe passage on sweet children, safe passage on our way. May we have safe passage, oh, safe passage. May we have safe passage, oh, safe passage on our way.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Catherine Boyle, and this is the Time for All Ages. Now, my pronouns are she, hers, hers, and I'm the Director of Family Ministry here at UUCB. And now, in this special Time for All Ages, this exercise that we're about to do comes from my colleague, Gary Kolowski. So I want you to imagine in your mind a bag. Now, since you may not have a bag right in front of you, I have a bag for our activity. Let's begin. When babies are born, babies, they don't believe in anything. They're not born Buddhist or Baptist or believers in much other than that crying makes something happen. But as soon as we are babies and we arrive in the world, we start to gather ideas. We start to pick up beliefs about people, maybe about families, about animals. We collect ideas about the stars and comets and how it all got started. We accumulate beliefs about good and evil, right and wrong, healthy and unhealthy, and what's important in life. Now, all of these beliefs, which we get from our parents and our playmates, go into this belief bag. Now, some of these belief bags, most religions define themselves by what they believe or by what's inside of their belief bag. Christians, for example, believe in Jesus. Muslims believe in Allah and the Prophet Muhammad. Buddhists believe in the Four Noble Truths. But we Unitarian Universalists, we don't just have one set of beliefs. What makes us different is the way we Unitarian Universalists carry out our beliefs. Because there are so many different ways of holding your belief bag. For example, some people may hold their bag like this. They'll clutch it close to their chest and make sure it's zipped up nice and tight, nice and sealed. They don't want any of their beliefs exposed to any new ideas that could threaten what's inside. They got their whole world wrapped up in this nice little package. And because their bag is all closed up, we call these people closed-minded. Now, of course, there is the other side of this. The other, in which people are just the opposite. People that don't pay much attention at all to what's inside their bag, what goes in. Maybe one idea is just as good as another. And maybe, they find something that they hear on the internet or a podcast, and automatically it's true. And because they have their bag in such a sloppy manner, we call these people sloppy thinkers. And then there are the people who carry their bags like this. They use it as the club to hit other people. What's inside their bag may be nice and sweet. For example, I believe in peace and kindness and the golden rule. But they use their bag like a weapon. You don't believe in peace? Shame. You nasty person. Shame on you. But in all these ways, none of them are Unitarian Universalist way of holding our bags. Instead, we carry our bags like this. We carry them with the top open so that new ideas and experiences can get inside, and old ideas, old beliefs can be tossed aside if needed. And we carry our bags in front of us so we can see and examine what makes sense and what fits with the other things that we know. And also that so that we can see what our neighbors think and we can share our thoughts with others. Above all, we never use our beliefs to beat up or bully other people. And this open bagness, this is what it means to be Unitarian Universalist. Next time somebody asks you, what do the people in your church believe? You can tell them, Unitarian Universalist. For them, for us, it's less important what you believe than how you hold your beliefs. It's about how you acquire them, how you share them, and above all, what you do with them that counts. Blessings, my friends. Take care.
Autumn, it feels like autumn. Although the breeze is still, I feel the chill of autumn. Oh yes, it's autumn. It's always autumn. However green the hill, to me it still is autumn. I can feel the frost now that makes my spring and summer dreams seem lost now. I can be autumn haze, recall the days of warm summer laughter that faded soon after in autumn, then left in autumn. And though another season's here, I feel the emptiness of autumn all the year. I can feel the frost now that makes my spring and summer dreams seem lost now. Why can't the autumn haze recall the days of warm summer laughter that faded soon after in autumn? He left in autumn. And though another season's here, I feel the emptiness of autumn all the year. Autumn, autumn.
Our Unitarian Universalist faith draws from many sources, but the first source is our lived life, the scripture written on our bodies. Today, it is my honor to share some of my own experiences. A while back, I was having my students create an identity collage online where they posted a collection of pictures representing some of their many different identities. It seemed like it was going well. They were noticing and organizing different parts of themselves. When I opened one student's post and saw, included in his pictures, a picture of the thin blue line flag. If you're not familiar with this flag, it is a black and white version of the United States flag, except one of the white bars has been filled in with blue. For some people, this flag means they support the police. But this flag has been used by white supremacists, neo-Nazis, Proud Boys, and other hate groups as an expression of an us versus them, with the them as the Black Lives Matter protest groups and everyone who supports that. I was horrified when I saw this flag, and I wrote a long response to my student talking about, while his intended meaning might have been about supporting the police, maybe he had a family member who was a police officer, the effect of this image was that it made the most vulnerable people in my classroom, my students of color, particularly my Black and brown students, unwelcome and unsafe. If we are to be a community, whether in the classroom or the church, we can hold no space for those treating some of our gathering as inhuman. I tell you this story because I want to tell you a different story. And I want to let you know that I have full permission from my partner, Bill, to tell this story. It was the summer of 2017. Charlottesville hadn't happened yet, but Trump's words and actions lent a weight to the air. Bill and I realized we had friends, but we did not have community. Our search, we were hungry for community. Our search landed us here at UUCB, but on our second visit, things went awry. We were meeting people, connecting, excited about this place when, in a personal theology discussion, someone casually mentioned, Republicans are evil. We almost didn't come back. You see, Bill grew up conservative and had been a registered Republican ever since the first time he registered to vote in the Army. The casual dismissal and broad brush of evil made him angry and reaffirmed this stereotype of the hateful liberal that gets floated around on the right. We decided to give it another try, mostly because of the warm welcome of a few people. Lonnie. It was Lonnie. So we ended up signing up for the Social Justice Chalice Circle. We went to the Literature, Film, and Drama Contingent, the LDFC. We heard some powerful sermons, and we kept meeting people, connecting, and building community. I've been with my partner for almost 10 years, and we've discussed and debated a lot, especially about politics. I would almost always win. Let's be very clear here. I am very good at arguing, and I would almost always win. Bill is holding on the one time that he won. So, but all of this winning wasn't convincing. It wasn't until we joined UUCB that Bill changed his views. And now, to the shame of his family, is a registered Democrat. When I heard about the topic of this sermon about softening the hardened heart, my first thought was no. We do not make space for people whose language and symbols say that some of us are not human. We do not create a home for those who do not respect the dignity and worth of every individual. I was struggling. When I brought this up with Bill, he reminded me of the time when someone said Republicans are evil. And I realized this is a tension we hold. one we must hold. At the beginning of every service, we say, we welcome you in the fullness of who you are. But this truth is a lie that holds a more complicated truth. We cannot welcome everyone, because to welcome white supremacists, to hear their words and spread their symbols, would make our community unsafe and unwelcome. Unwelcome to people of color specifically, to all of those targeted, and in the end, unsafe and unwelcome to all of us. But to make our community unwelcoming to white supremacists doesn't mean we make it unwelcoming to everyone who's walked lives different than our own. We are not a faith that says only the pure and perfect come. We are an intricate and tangled faith, and we hold intricate and tangled welcomes. When I talked to my student who posted the Blue Lives Matter flag, he talked about his family members who are on the police force, and he agreed to replace that flag with a different symbol supporting police. When we discussed the structural violence of policing in class, he didn't agree, but he also didn't leave. We have the strength and grace as a people to do both, to prioritize those of us who are vulnerable and gather with those who disagree. We are an intricate and tangled faith, but our welcomes, we can, we do, we must welcome each other over and over again in the fullness of who we are. Amen.
This is the time in our that we make in our service for the tender things that may be on our hearts, the joys, the sorrows, the cares, and the challenges that we may be carrying for others or for ourselves. During the silence that follows, I invite you to name any joys or sorrows or significant milestones of your own in the comments section. I invite us to hold all of these in the collective embrace of this loving community.
Beloved friends, wherever you may be, I invite you to join me in prayer. In this quiet space of inward peace, we seek to open our own hearts and one another's hearts to the stirrings of conscience, to the divine presence that always surrounds us, if we will but listen, strengthening our spirits with reassurance of hope and possibility, tugging us, luring us toward deeper awareness of all that is true and beautiful and holy. Here, we would restore our eyes and ourselves to fullness of purpose. Here, we would lift our eyes to greater vision. Here, we would reach out to one another with compassion, with understanding, with tender comfort and encouragement, as we give thanks, confess our shortcomings, and offer forgiveness. We expand our awareness to all who suffer or are oppressed. We lament the hardness of heart that too much divides our nation's people and our leaders. And we pray for a future when peace and goodwill shall prevail and health be restored to all. And in all this, we remember our blessings, gifts of family and friendship that enrich our lives and for which we give blessing in return. May it always be so. Amen.
Voice still and small, deep inside all, I hear you call, singing. In storm and rain, sorrow and pain, still will remain singing, calming my fears, quenching my tears, through all the years singing. Voice still and small, deep inside all, I hear you call, singing. In storm and rain, sorrow and pain, still will remain singing, calming my fears, quenching my tears, through all the years singing.
Our reading today comes from Rabindranath Tagore, Let My Country Awake. Where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up with fragments of narrow domestic walls, where the words come from the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way in the dreary desert sand of dead habit, where the mind is led forward into ever-widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom. Let my country awake.
It's been quite a November. Any normal November would be a month of gratitude. First, on Veterans Day for those who have put their lives on the line in military service, and then on Thanksgiving Day, when our thoughts typically turn to harvest and the blessings of food shared around a table of family and friends. But this year, now at the end of an unprecedented November, my head is swirled all month with a whirlwind of concerns and thoughts and emotions, mostly anxiety over the national election. And yet, even in the midst of a devastating pandemic, our electoral process has amazingly moved along with almost exemplary smoothness in most places, despite horrible interference from the current administration, and yet with the largest turnout in American history. As I listened for the results of the presidential election almost 4 weeks ago now, the title of a movie from back in the mid-90s flashed into my mind, Waiting to Exhale. Anybody remember that? That's what I was doing, waiting to exhale and hoping that I'd actually be able to exhale. And the time came in mid-afternoon on Wednesday, the day after the election, when the shape of the electoral result was becoming clear. Exhaling at last, or so I thought. My relief didn't last long. Since then, we've lived with uncertainty, alarm, chaos, anger, in place of resolution of any sense of acceptance and finality. We have rancor, division, hateful language. As I've thought about what to say this morning at such a time of national division and unrest, my ponderings have been shaped by the awareness that our worship theme here at UUCB for the month of November is healing, healing, healing. Never have our society and our nation been so in need of healing since the time of the Civil War, I think. And never has it seemed so remote, so elusive. I think back to that time of civil war more than 150 years ago, the most militant, most massive, and most deadly expression of white supremacy and overt racism that our nation has ever known. We were blessed back then with a president who could stand up and say words like these to the nation: with malice toward none, with charity for all, let us bind up our nation's wounds. A year earlier at Gettysburg, Abraham Lincoln had envisioned an end of the war that might lead to, as he said, a new birth of freedom. Can we today imagine a new birth of freedom for our nation, or even just a return to some kind of civility? Can we imagine a pathway through and beyond the divisions that fester among us? Where is the balm that can soothe and mend our nation's soul? How can we be helpers in the healing that's so desperately needed? First of all, how do we even understand the political division that exists in our society? What is it that differentiates the 81 million people who voted for Joe Biden from the 75 million people who voted for Donald Trump? I've heard lots of answers to that question, but the description that rings most true to my understanding is the one that Derek Thompson proposed in his essay in The Atlantic just a few weeks ago. It's a matter, he said, of density and diplomas. That is, density of population, meaning urban versus rural on the one hand, and college diplomas on the other. Now, that's a bit simplistic, of course, and glosses over a lot of racial and ethnic and other demographic factors. But I think it offers us a helpful starting point. If you list American cities in descending order of population, you have to go down to number 25 before you get to a city that didn't cast a majority vote for Joe Biden. And in case you're curious, that 25th city was Oklahoma City. Whatever else might be true, Joe Biden is the candidate of the college-educated urban dwellers. $85 million versus 75 million. Both are significant numbers that are not going away. And there's little constructive communication across that urban-rural divide. Attitudes of suspicion, resentment, elitism, and disparagement fan the flames of division. 4 years ago, Hillary Clinton's calling out Trump supporters as despicables, and Barack Obama's dismissal of rural folk as concerned only about their guns and religion laid bare embarrassing attitudes of elitism. And then there's the email. Most likely you are on some of the same email lists that I am on, wanting donations for various electoral races around the country. My email box is filled with calls for revenge and humiliation of political opponents. Donate now to punish McConnell, says one. Support our plan to humiliate Trump and Graham, says another. Just 2 weeks ago, well after the election was over and decided, one of the liberal organizations that I have regularly supported headlined its message with the subject line, "How to Screw Over Scumbag Mitch McConnell." Now, I know that this can simply be dismissed as typical political hyperbole, and it probably appeals to some people, maybe many people. But it has an effect that we ignore at our peril. It doesn't model for anyone the kind of talk that is required, is going to be required to move our country toward healing. We need to soften our hearts, not harden them, not speak sarcastically. We need to engage with others in ways that help them soften their hearts also. There's a lot of evidence that our citizenry at large is not nearly as polarized as our senators and representatives are. Public leadership has to do more and better to encourage ordinary citizens to encounter one another with civility and to calm down the excesses of partisanship. People need to see examples of what they can do at the local level, in their communities, their neighborhoods, their houses of worship. So let's bring this down to home. We Unitarian Universalists speak of honoring the worth and dignity of every person, but we don't see much dignity being accorded between political opponents these days, and it's an ideal that we individually often have trouble living up to. In last month's Fishbowl, session, sponsored periodically by our social justice community, as you know, one of the participants followed up that session by urging everyone, quote, to stop referring to some political opponents as ignorant, dumb, or low information, and other disparaging epithets. Our friend goes on to say, while I am angry about their impact as anyone, there's no way to develop any real communication with them while hurling epithets, especially those that imply that we are superior to them. There are two very important points in that brief remark that need lifting up. First, there are moral outrages that should anger us, that we should rage against, with anger that is indeed righteous anger, felt in the service of justice that spurs us to action. But we need a private and safe space for that kind of rage, for letting it run its course. Such anger is often cathartic. It is for me, at least. And for a while, maybe it's psychological healthy to pace back and forth in my own living room, chewing out what I've just heard someone say. But expressed by shouting into someone's face, it leads nowhere. Certainly not to any healing. The second point is the constructive work of real communication that is so essential to healing and that has to be done with regard for another person's worth and dignity, and with genuine caring, compassion, positive regard, and gentleness of spirit. We can't do that when we're consumed by rage. How to deal with this is something I've been helped with by a recent book by Valerie Carr. She is a Sikh activist, that's S-I-K-H, a Sikh activist, whom I heard speak 3 or 4 years ago at a national conference and was very impressed by. She has a degree from Harvard Divinity School, a JD from some law school, I've forgotten which one. And she has become a major spokesperson, I should say, not only for her own religious people, the Sikhs, but other religious minorities who have been the victims of prejudice in our country. Let me read just a bit of what she says. In all our various labors, making a life, raising a family, or building a movement, we can care for ourselves by remembering the wisdom of the midwife. Breathe and push. We can breathe to draw energy and power into our bodies and let joy in. We can push through fear and pain to become our best selves, including through healing, forgiveness, and reconciliation. And in the most convulsive moments of our lives, we can summon our deepest wisdom and find the bravery to transition, undertaking the fiery and life-giving labor of moving from one reality to another. Laboring in love is how we birth the world to come. Now, as a cisgendered male, I feel a bit self-conscious and maybe even presumptuous about recommending a metaphor of birth, labor, and midwifery. And yet this imagery makes so much sense to me. Breathe, rest, and push forward again. Breathe again to give myself space, to let the rage sometimes subside, to collect my thoughts, to slow down time, maybe just for a second or two, or maybe for a day and a week, to give my own anger or disgust or offense space to express itself safely until I can continue and go back to the conversation and speak with integrity, with strength, and with gentleness, and listen with those same qualities. These are not easy qualities to embody, and I would certainly not claim any inspiring example or merit of practicing them myself. They are hard. When I hear hateful political statements from another person that challenge everything I value, or indeed that I find disgusting, it's all too easy for me to let anger rise to the surface, or to fall silent, or to simply walk away feeling hopeless about any constructive conversation. Yet I know that none of those reactions provides a pathway to healing. In one way or another, I, we, you, all of us have to learn how to stick with the conversation. And we have models for doing that right here in our own congregation. In the work of anti-racism, for example, some of you have seen or participated in, or at least know about, the work being done in our congregation by some people who meet together in the WOWs, or the POCC group, WOWs standing for Whites Opposing White Supremacy, and POCC, People of Color Caucus. And also in the fishbowl sessions that I mentioned earlier. These groups in our congregation here at UUCB have been modeling and practicing the hard work, the labor of deep listening, of caring regard for the experiences and the stories of others. Can we translate what they have learned, the techniques that they have used, into the challenge of political division? I think we can. Too many of us, and I include myself in this, live in silos of education, of urban residency, of racial identity. Most UU churches live in political silos. And as comforting as that may be for lots of folks most of the time, it has its downsides. What if the membership right here at UUCB were politically diverse enough for us to form the political equivalent of our WOWs and POCC groups? How might our ability to talk with one another about partisan and political issues be enhanced by the opportunity to engage in groups like that right here where we already know one another and have a foundation of shared values? That foundation makes the conversation easier. Joe Biden, to his credit, recently said, we have to stop treating our political opponents as enemies. Yes, but even more importantly, we have to stop dismissing them. We need to be able to see the world through the eyes of others, to walk in their shoes, to more deeply and honestly understand their fears, their values, the depth of their despair. Can I imaginatively inhabit the mindset of another person or feel the values of someone who votes differently than I? The first step in real communication is deep listening. This means allowing ourselves to be drawn into someone else's story, into their world. I think that's what Hannah Arendt meant when she said something like, we must train our minds to go visiting. We have to get out of our silos if we are going to hear and understand, even feel the perspectives of others. This does not mean surrendering our own integrity or values. It doesn't mean agreeing with ideas that are offensive and dangerous. We are, after all, in the first instance, just listening. Listening with the possibility of connection, of hearing or seeing something that will help us adopt an ever so slightly altered angle of vision. We need to learn and to practice how to breathe in the midst of encountering one another and to go beyond and beneath the differences. Breathe, rest, then return and push and go deeper still. Find the hurt, find the wound or the fear in another person that connects with something in me. If I can find that with my dialogue partner, then we have laid a foundation for moving forward, maybe even with some mutual understanding. In these days of waning light, we know of so many varied religious traditions that celebrate holidays of light. In India, Diwali has already come and gone. Earlier this morning, Michelle lit the first candle of Advent, marking the approach to the birth of Jesus in the Christian calendar. On Thursday evening, December 10th, or the 25th of Kislev in the Jewish calendar, we light the first of 8 Hanukkah candles. On December 21st, earth-centered traditions mark the longest night of the year, historically with bonfires and the Yule log. And on December 26th, the first of the 7 candles of Kwanzaa is lit. All these traditions and ceremonies, in their different ways, assert light in the face of darkness. But darkness and winter, as UU minister Greta Crosby reminds us, should not be wished away. Winter has its own meaning, its own purpose, she writes, and may be, quote, rich in beauty, challenge, and pregnant negativities. And so I see this year's seasonal darkness as a metaphor for the darkness of our political division and strife. Is this darkness a darkness of the tomb or a darkness of the womb, of waiting for the birth of something? If we as a nation have indeed been living in a political version of womb-like darkness, what does this call us to do? What is it that we can help bring to birth? That is something we cannot wholly see at the moment, but we have to look. We have to peer into the darkness, reach into it, reach out to others, invite them to reach back to us, offer our hearts and hands in openness to listening, hearing, and then to gentle conversation, searching always for some point of deep contact. I reach out to you. Will you reach out to me? Says the closing hymn that we will sing in a few minutes. My hope is that every light that we kindle in this season, be it for Advent, Hanukkah, the solstice, Kwanzaa, or just at the evening dinner table, that each one of those candles be a candle of hope for ourselves, our families and friends, our communities, and our nation. Amen.
As always, UUCB needs your gifts and support as we continue to make ours a vibrant and loving community. We also hope you will continue to practice generosity, especially with our Good Neighbor organizations. This month, we are sharing half of our offerings with Operation Dignity to support the good work they do in our wider community. Operation Dignity serves homeless and at-risk veterans, their families, and the communities they live in. They meet intermediate and long-term needs by providing emergency, transitional, and permanent housing, comprehensive outreach and support services, and a strong peer community inclusive of race, religion, gender, sexual orientation, and disability. Offerings of any value are received with gratitude. More details on how to give electronically will appear on your screen as our offertory begins. Thank you. Please join me in dedicating our offering. We dedicate this offering and ourselves to the mission of this congregation, to create loving community, inspire spiritual growth, and encourage lives of integrity, joy, and service. It's been so good to be together in worship, even virtually. Before we shift to our virtual coffee hour on Zoom, I would like to encourage you to stay informed about and involved in all that is going on in our congregation by exploring our website, UUCB.org. Among other things, you can find a link in News to the week ahead, our weekly email newsletter, which contains a list of upcoming activities. As we prepare to leave the worship service, here are a few important announcements. December 6th, save the date from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m., where you can join the Social Justice Council's Literature, Film, and Drama contingent for a special matinee performance of The White Card, a play in one act by Claudia Rankin. The discussion of the performance will follow. Next, we're approaching the time of many holidays, but we're not going to let this pandemic keep us from enjoying nourishing and delicious foods. Just like we did with the UUCB cornbread celebration, we now ask that you type up and share your favorite holiday recipes, desserts, and all the other delicious things that you like to eat. Type them up and send it to us by December 7th to uucbrecipes@gmail.com. Excited to find out.
One more announcement for us this morning. This coming Saturday, 11 a.m., same as our Sunday worship time on YouTube and on Facebook, I invite you to join our church community for a very special event, the ordination of Catherine Boyle, our Director of Family Ministry. It is a super special thing that only happens to a minister once, and Catherine has chosen for UUCB to be the ones who ordain her. We'll be ordaining her in the service. There will be a Zoom reception following, and I really hope that you will all be able to make the time for this very special service this coming Saturday at 11 a.m. And now let us join in singing our closing hymn, Building Bridges. The words will be on screen.
Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony. Friends, we could make such sweet harmony.
Friends, we could make such sweet harmony.
Our time of worship together has ended. As we move back into the rhythms of another week, let us take time to breathe, to slow down, and to push against all in our lives and our nation that needs pushing. As we extinguish our chalice, our work of healing in the world begins once again. Take up the torch with gladness, in peace and resolution and hope. Amen.